Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Hope everyone is enjoying the summer and is getting excited for some of the school sessions to come back into play. I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey with fundraising, both on the non-dilutive and dilutive side. So you all have some perspective on different considerations that you might want to utilize in your own approaches as early investigators and really kind of navigating the small business innovative research programs. So I'm going to just jump right in, and what we'll do today is first just kick it off with a little bit of an introduction of myself and map habits, so you can understand a little bit more about our small business and how we've kind of positioned our product for commercialization. That's obviously very important to know the audience, who is the consumer, who is going to pay for it, and how do you scale. Then we'll go a little bit into different non-dilutive funding opportunities by the SBIR program, which is from the Small Business Association. It stands for Small Business Innovative Research, for those who are not aware. And we'll look at different options from an external investment perspective, because when you consider raising money for your venture, it's important to have both in non-dilutive and dilutive funding strategies, and even combining them can be advantageous. And we will have a formal Q&A at the end. What I will do, however, after each of the three sections here, I will pause and just check the Q&A, because I believe that there might be some questions that are in the chat. So thank you, Meredith, for queuing that. All right. Well, without further ado, I will just jump into it. Uh, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Map Habit, and I was inspired to start the company really in memory of my uncle. As you can read here, he was a big mentor for me, and really got me into the entrepreneurship world through my first computer that I got in I think it was the seventh grade. I had a 286, and we just got our first dial-up 2400 baud modem, which probably ages myself, but maybe not for everyone. But unfortunately, with my uncle, while he was really influential in providing, these tools for me, and really helped me, kind of get kind of in this entrepreneurial spirit of learning computers, one for myself, but then teaching other, really older adults who didn't, know how to use, word processors or really basic, keyboard skills. Um, he Over time, he developed early onset Alzheimer's disease. And that happened in his late 50s, early 60s. And for many of you who are on this call, who may be aware of the National Institute on Aging and some of their Alzheimer's programs, which is really going to be the focus of my experience, and a big opportunity for making a dent into population health. Getting the disease in your 60s is very rare. And it's unfortunately, I got to see how that impacted his, early on ability to calculate the tip on a bill, to then, forgetting the steps in which to put on some of his clothes. And while that was really hard for him, it was even harder for my aunt, who is a family caregiver with really no formal experience in caregiving, and was really thrown into that role without, any formal education. So it was those experiences that really, kind of molded my passion for this. Even in 2004, fast forward 14 years when I actually started the company with Dr. Zola as a neuroscientist, it was really some of those learnings and looking at some of the ways where he could have potentially utilized technology, or even just basic following pictures step by step to get through his daily routines, and that would have made such a difference for him and really the care partners that are involved. As many people know, there's about 7 million people with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, and those numbers are expected to double by 2050. Also, by 2030, about 50% of the people with Alzheimer's, or between 30 and 50%, will be affecting minority populations. So, Black and Latino communities are unfortunately predisposed to a greater risk of Alzheimer's disease. So there's a great need out there for innovations like MapHabit, and also for new innovations that you all may have, whether it be for Alzheimer's disease and related dementia on the kind of neuroscience, neurology side of the house, or different kinds of fall prevention techniques. Just caregiving supports. There's a ton of different areas that the Small Business Innovative Research Program that really funds. So I'll do a quick video on what MapHabit is. Again, this is to seed the concept of innovation and commercialization and kind of knowing your audience. So I want to make sure that you all have some of that background. So we will go ahead and start that now.
55% of caregivers feel overwhelmed by the amount of care needed for their family members. Often, caregivers deal with stress and fatigue that can lead to burnout or even depression. Harry is living with dementia. His spouse, Jane, is his primary care partner. Jane needs additional support and resources to learn about how to confidently provide Harry with the best care. Here's how MapHabit helps them achieve their goals. At 9 a.m., Jane receives a notification that it's time to fill Harry's pillboxes for the week. Jane selects the Filling Pillbox for the Week map for medication management. She uses the step-by-step guide, complete with audio, photos, and video, to ensure Harry takes the correct medication and dosage throughout the week. Jane can customize Harry's maps with images and instructions that reflect exactly what he needs to do. By using MapHabit, Jane ensures consistency of care around Harry's weekly routine, and he can easily follow along. MapHabit also brings members of Harry's circle of support closer to him. As he completes his maps, they can view his progress, giving them a greater sense of ease. Jane can also print Harry's maps for him to use independently or with other members of his support circle, giving her a much-needed respite. MapHabit also offers Engage activity kits with exercises and supplies designed to increase cognitive engagement, support mindfulness, and reduce feelings of loneliness and isolation. MapHabit support coaches are available for on-demand sessions. With over 40 years of dementia support experience, the team can provide tips on how to support loved ones living with dementia. On average, MapHabit users see significant boosts in autonomy and quality of life, while reducing the load on their care partner. Don't wait to get started. Map your path to independence today.
All right. Well, thanks for bearing with me and checking out the presentation. I All of what you see there is kind of a combination of multi-years of work that and learnings through these small business innovative research programs where you can really test out a hypothesis in a phase one capacity, and then once you have some learnings and some initial data, conducting a randomized control trial and really kind of honing in on what works and what's the most effective for your audience. So just know that all that was not created in one fell swoop, and it was a very much iterative approach that focuses not only on the individual and their needs, but also on what we call the circle of support, which are caregivers. In our case, mostly they're family caregivers who, like I mentioned with my uncle, really didn't have that formal education and training and need the help of a coach to kind of guide them through the process. MapHabit is also used for professional caregivers as well for consistency of care, also to offset some of the high turnover that is really kind of plaguing the industry right now. And as a result, the consistency of care and achieving certain person-centered goals are really important for kind of keeping people healthy and also avoiding potential fines and also early institutionalization. So you also saw different programs on there as well that related to some of that fine motor and that gross motor skill where you're exercising or mindfulness. A lot of those that kit that has those mental acuity games can work on bilateral coordination and also using dominant and non-dominant hands. So all that has been designed by occupational therapists and physical therapists. So incorporating a lot of these evidence-based practices into your innovation is important. Not only for kind of meeting people where they are. And but also when you're putting together your proposals, that you do know that it's not a one size fits all, especially with those that need cognitive support, especially with those with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So uh, that's really kind of more of a primer on, how a digital health innovation can be positioned and also, what are some of the considerations when going to market. So uh, I'm going to just pause here. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. That's totally fine. If anyone has a question that they want to add in, feel free. I'll wait maybe 10 seconds. If not, I will just jump on to some of the non-dilutive funding section next. All right. Well, we will move on and kind of dive into this section. So for many of you, you're probably aware of, like I mentioned, the Small Business Innovative Research Program. So I'm going to help kind of define and give you some perspective as to what that is, share a couple of the funding opportunities that are available to folks. But then also, talk about some of the lessons learned and some of the examples that are available for achieving funding. So, from a definition of the SBIR program, a lot of this is related to different divisions that have kinds of funding opportunities that are available. So in this case, we have focused on the National Institutes of Health, but there are other organizations like the National Science Foundation, the Department of Defense, which is now the Department of War, Department of Energy, the Federal Drug Administration. I think upwards of like 15 of the 21 agencies approximately have small business innovative research programs. So there are, some links on here that you can click on. I'll share the deck, but you can also kind of Google some of these and get some more information about what those programs are. Specific to the NIH, and then looking a click down of the NIH and the different divisions that are available. The National Institute on Aging is the main division of the National Institutes of Health that at least MapHabit has pursued for non-dilutive funding. They have a great website. I again have a link to it here, but you basically can go to NIA SBIR, throw that into a web browser, and get a ton of information about what the National Institute on Aging is looking to fund. I listed some of the areas here around, prevention, diagnosis, care and caregiving, and analytics and digital health, like MapHabit kind of crosses multiple of those areas. And because it does, we have been able to apply for different parent awards. That's an important concept because you can have a whole funding grant that focuses on the individual, the patient, if you will, and their needs. And you can have a whole additional track for caregivers that could be another parent award. And within each of those tracks, there are, anything from a phase one to a phase two to what I will share here is there are, even past the phase two, which is a 2-year program. There are commercialization readiness pilots, for example. which are 3-year programs that are up to 4.2 million. So there's a lot of funding that's available there, especially for companies and investigators that are looking to really address unmet needs in this landscape and really start with the phase 1 program that focuses on, feasibility and just kind of proof of concept. Is what you have created something that is light and in demand? And can you obtain some initial feedback from your users that you can then build into a more innovative and more significant approach that will help you get a phase 2 award? So one of the options is first going to a phase 1 and then submitting a competitive phase 2 application to get the 2 years of additional funding. The other option is all at once going for both the phase 2, phase 1, and phase 2 in what's called a fast track. That can be advantageous if you have early data that is already something that you can reference in your application, or if you've maybe utilized, your innovation in another vertical. Like for us, we support both individuals with disabilities, specifically those with autism or developmental disabilities, and then also on kind of that older adults who need cognitive support for those with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, people who've had strokes, et cetera. So you can leverage other areas in which you've proven out your intervention and apply for a fast track. That would be kind of the strategy that I suggest. Um, but then, once you do have your randomized control trial and are able to publish the results, and there's indications of a customer traction, because in the phase 2, that does require the commercialization plan where you have to, look at the total addressable market. You have to look at your go-to-market strategy. Who are you going to sell to? Who's going to use it? How are you going to get additional, follow-on revenue from existing and for new customers? Who are your competitors? All that, needs to be in a well thought out commercialization plan. But when you do have a lot of that in place and you can identify different tracks for kind of a full scale, technical assistance to commercialize that, that's when the commercialization readiness pilot comes in. Again, that's a 3-year up to 4.2 million. So if you add these up, you've got the phase 1, which is 1 year. We'll just call it roughly 500,000. Then you've got an additional 2 years of 2.5 million. That is 3 million in total. And then you could have a commercialization readiness pilot of up to 4 million. You're looking at over $7 million over a 6-year period that you can fund your company without any external investment. It's really important to know that if you're willing to be very, systematic, if you're willing to put the rigor around what is needed for having peer-reviewed publications and improving efficacy and iterating on your design through a clinical trial, kind of track, that helps you for validity when you're going upstream and selling to higher barrier to entry markets like health insurance companies or different kinds of accountable care organizations that may be looking for value-based care and where you can maybe take on risk for basically having outcomes that would be something that you're not going to charge upfront for, but pay for performance. So all that being said, the non-dilutive track, if you're willing to go slow and methodical, can be a really great option for you. So a lot of what I've learned since 2018 and starting the company is that these grants are great. It's really amazing to see the amount of public investment that's available, but you do need to start early. And these SBIR programs, especially the general solicitation that each of the different divisions of the National Institutes of Health have. They're about three times a year in January, April, and September are your timings for applying. You want to back into those dates by about 3 to 4 months to actually start your application. The reasons for that is one, to develop a compelling application where if you look at phase one statistics for getting funded, they're really only about 15 to 20% get funded. You need to have a really tight narrative. You have to have strong investigators, which are, different, principal investigators or co-investigators on your team that have both the product and the clinical chops in order to pull this off. But then you also have to have a very, well thought out set of specific aims that build out your hypothesis. You share how, why is this significant in meeting an unmet need that your particular division is, publicly funded by Congress to support. And then how are you going to innovate on that? And how are you going to build something that has the opportunity to scale? And then finally, for those, different specific aims that you put in there, how are you going to approach it? From your initial design to protection of human subjects to some of your data collection, your outcomes, and really kind of success criteria that would warrant future investment. So all that does take time, and there's a lot of resources that are available out there, but start early. Also, ask for help. I know that there are many, options out there, especially within the university systems. If you've got, I think there's folks here from, Johns Hopkins, UMass, and also UPenn. Even if you're not affiliated with an university directly, there are pay for hire grant administrators that are basically consultants that can help you get everything set up. The setup involves, basically registering with the Small Business Association, creating what's called a sam.gov registry for your company, and making sure that you have your tax ID and everything all registered, which can take up to 6 to 8 weeks. Another reason to start early is to make sure if you're a first time awardee that you have all that in place. But there are also full service grant writers where if you don't have that experience writing these kinds of pretty rigorous technical and scientific applications, that you can hire someone, PhD typically level, who can really help you with not only the writing itself, but the strategy and making sure everything is linked and flowed together. So don't be afraid to ask for help. That is really critical. There are good opportunities within academic research partners that you can use. Don't be afraid to kind of talk to, clinicians, or especially if you have Alzheimer's disease research centers, for example, with the National Institute on Aging. Those are great partners that you can leverage to make your application even more compelling. Um, but then finally, do anticipate resubmission. Uh, we have been very fortunate to be awarded about $10 million over 8 years. We only won one of our submissions on the first try, and we submitted probably like 8 or 9 times. So it's hard. It's hard to get it right. You don't know who those three scientific peer reviewers are that will be part of your study section. That if you're in the top, I think 2/3 of your applications, you'll be slotted to three reviewers who have previous funding experience and or just pretty significant knowledge within the field. So you're almost at the mercy of those three individuals, and making sure that you've got the ones that have can resonate with what you've written. So it's tough. So to get that summary statement back with very specific feedback on those areas that I had mentioned, on the investigator, on the significance, on the innovation, your approach, your environment that you're, building this program, and a lot of the other areas, just anticipate that you're going to have to go for it again. So if you add up all those timings, starting 3 to 4 months early, applying, by one of those deadlines. So for example, we'll take September is coming up next. I've got, a really good application. I've been working on it a couple months. I now have about a month and a half to go. I submit on September 5th. What will typically happen is about 6 weeks later, if yours is in that top two-thirds, it will get assigned to a study section. Those reviewers will score. They will meet in a peer review process, and typically about 2.5 months after you submit your application, you will get your score, and then several weeks later, up to a month afterward, you'll get the full summary sheet. So in order for you to reapply for that next cycle, in this case, that would be January, you really do need to hustle and already, potentially be working in some of the issues that you might have thought were present in your application. So uh, again, anticipate resubmission. It's not a bad thing. Actually, when you submit a second time, because you have this introductory section, it does cue the reader to the specific areas that were major concerns in that summary section and summary statement, and you can really focus on being responsive and really addressing those concerns in a resubmission. So definitely prepare accordingly. So again, I'm going to just pause for a moment here. Nothing in the chat thus far, but if you have any questions or ideas or experiences that you've had that you want to throw in there and have any dialogue with me, I'll give you about 15 seconds to put it in there, and then we will move on to the final section of the presentation. All right. So just kind of moving on to the final piece here. In addition to the non-dilutive funding that I've spent a lot of the first part of the application, excuse me, the first part of the webinar talking about, there are dilutive options that you can pursue. And a lot of this is probably not new to you, but I think the way that you layer and stack these kinds of dilutive opportunities alongside the non-dilutive are really important considerations, for building your company and building your product. So angels, certainly those are, early friends and family that are willing to provide, some initial checks to you all. Usually it's in the form of a safe, which is a simple agreement for future equity that has become really popular over the years through the Y Combinator. So those may be your first couple of investors. You then have a pre-seed round, which are slightly larger checks. You may bring in some small VCs or not only individual angels, but you may have angel groups that will kind of collectively vet different organizations, and even some accelerators that are around. There's some great ones by HealthWorks, for example, and several others that you can consider applying to. But usually the pre-seed round, you do have a minimum viable product and has some initial users at that point. Your seed round, a lot of the times you will have a dedicated VC potentially, but you can raise a seed round with those same angels and angel groups as well. Although we have taken on, some strategic investors through, some health plans, health systems, and actually the AgeTech Collaborative we are a part of, and the AARP invested in MapHabit. Many of our other investors are follow-on investors as part of our angel and pre-seed rounds in the seed round. So definitely, don't limit it just to venture capital. Venture capital is hard. You do give away the control of your company when you have a professional investing firm. So definitely consider that when you go for these later rounds like seed and finally the Series A, where you really are looking at institutional venture capital, where it typically is a priced round, not just a safe on top of a safe at gradually increasing valuation caps, et cetera. But in this case, you're building upon the seed round where you really have some early indications of product market fit and ways to retain your user base. Here is you've not only done that in one example, but you have repeatedly done that over and over with a similar customer base and are really establishing the scalable go-to-market engine. And you also have unit economics. Unit economics are really important to kind of know what it costs for someone to purchase your product. How much does it cost you as a company, and what's the gross margin on there? Being able to, especially in software, to have a path towards higher and higher gross margins is important over time. And it's not going to happen early on where you're going to get to a 70 or 80% gross margin. You usually start with really a services-based company that you're kind of cobbling together a lot of different kinds of innovations into a minimum viable product in that pre-seed round, and then you've built this tech-enabled service that is maybe facilitated by a coach or a human being, but anchors around tech. And then really on the Series A side, and it's not to say that tech-enabled services don't get plenty of VC and institutional investment, but a lot of the times they are looking for very scalable business to business software as a service, aka B2B SaaS, to really get to that Series A or beyond. So again, just another kind of view of this where you can look at different kinds of revenue traction that might be applicable in those various stages. It's important to kind of know those different gates and initial criteria. It's not the same for every industry. These are just kind of general concepts and ideas. In terms of the dilution to expect. The key difference, obviously, between dilutive and non-dilutive capital is dilutive is, you're giving away parts of your company. So pre-seed, up to 12% dilution, that's common. An additional 10 to 20 at the seed, and then at the Series A side, 15 to 25. So if you're adding up, those higher end pieces there. You've got 12 plus 20, you got 32 there, plus another 25. You have, upwards of 50 to 60% dilution through a Series A if you're only doing external investment. But if you, similarly, I'll just go back here. The cumulative raise for your pre-seed and seed rounds are basically equal to what you can potentially get on that SBIR program and be able to kind of take out that upwards of 30+% dilution. So that's where it's really helpful if you're willing to take the extra time to have a non-dilutive strategy as your core, and then layer in some of these funding opportunities through safes as you kind of mature your company and mature your pitch. Then that can be very helpful. So you don't have to rely on just one or the other, but really do both. So what I would say is from a consideration perspective, definitely keep your cash burn rate low. This is something that is important for founders. and to early investors that the cap table is how much dilution and how many individuals that are on there that then have to kind of provide updates to, et cetera. The less money you spend, the slower you hire, use 1099 contractors maybe first before doing full-time employees, for example, and kind of fractional resources that can help you build that competency over time. That can be a really useful strategy. Um, Again, like I had mentioned, the non-dilutive option, as long as possible, is very much your friend. Like I mentioned, between those phase one, two, and the commercialization readiness pilot, you could get upwards of $7 million over 6 years, and really kind of eliminate the need for those full rounds of those pre-seed and seed, which can dilute you up to 30%. So definitely, as long as possible, is at least for us, that's what worked. Again, it's not the same for everyone, but consider that as a really good way to offset the size of your pre-seed and seed rounds. And then like I mentioned, you do have the option, and I do encourage a degree of dual strategy of that dilutive and non-dilutive. So the phase one would be kind of that angel pre-seed, where you're building out that feasibility and the initial kind of requirements into a minimum viable product that you would then test out in that phase two randomized control trial. That's typically when, even though you're doing a RCT, randomized control trial, you probably have some early customers that you've been able to acquire and build up some initial traction and proof points to iterate on. And then that final phase, that commercialization readiness pilot, that's where you start getting into not only the seed but potentially a Series A, where you can basically leverage your success on the non-dilutive side, which a lot of professional investors like a lot because it shows that you've been conscious stewards of your own capital, but then to be their capital. But then you also are able to show that it's not just the external investor funding, but also some of the funding that you can get from non-dilutive sources. So uh, that is the end of the formal presentation. And I just thank you all for staying with me and learning about some of the different options you have. Um, let's open it up in the chat. You obviously can throw some questions out today. Feel free to email me. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I love engaging with folks on there. But yeah, throw any questions that you might have in the chat. Nothing is too simple or basic. Pretty much if you're thinking it, someone else probably is as well. So yeah, don't hesitate to throw a question in there.
Matt, thank you so much. Do you have access to the Q&A? There are 9 questions, now 10 sitting in there for you.
Okay.
It,
I now do. Yes, thank you.
okay. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, perfect. That's helpful. So, Robert, I'll start with you. How necessary is it to have a PhD level PI involved in order to qualify for an award? I would say that it is very helpful to have a PhD level person, especially if you are a new investigator and you have not yet been awarded something as a principal investigator. I would say that's very important. I got my Bachelor of Business Administration and never got a PhD, although my co-founder has many, many degrees. So I would say for your first award, absolutely necessary, and really try to anchor with one of the academic institutions. But once you're a proven investigator, that becomes less important, and I think more of your writing is more important. All right, Janetta, how are you doing, Janetta? Um, what are the challenges you found working with researchers who are willing to work with entrepreneurs for commercial endeavors? Are there conflicts with ownership? Are there legal requirements required for identifying intellectual property? So yes to all of that. You do want to consider things like Office of Technology Transfer. If you're an undergraduate and you're developing something, you don't have to, be as concerned about the IP. But I believe if you're a graduate student, and certainly if you're a faculty, going through your Office of Technology Transfer is important for licensing agreements, et cetera, especially if you're using university equipment and resources. Um, Conflicts in ownership, that's a pretty nuanced a question, but yeah, there can be, and I would seek kind of corporate or intellectual property counsel for some of those. The next question, did you always apply for the same agency for SBIR, STTR? I see that the NSF tends to value technology and the NIH is clinical applications just as much. Would they be counted the same if you applied twice? All right, another good question. We applied for the NIH SBIR program first, got some initial awards, and then applied for the NSF. NSF is typically meant for pretty earlier stage, more technology focused. And because we had success in some of the NIH side of the house, the NSF, we didn't get the award, even though it was a highly competitive application. So um, I would probably, if it were me, start with NSF, build out some of your initial tech stack, collect some data, then go over to the SBIR, STTR within the NIH, which has higher kind of budget amounts overall, especially because it's got that commercialization readiness program. And I think now there's an official phase 3 that can give you up to 25 million, if you have matching funds. So I would maybe kind of do that strategy NSF first, then on NIH. Would they be counted if the same if you applied twice? So you only can have one intervention and one kind of application for one agency and really one federal active grant. You can't have overlap of your specific aims across different areas. You can include similar concepts, and that's where hiring a grant writer or an advisor can really help you. But you do have to be very careful about not overlapping between them. What does the amount you got from grants affect your valuation? So grants are non-dilutive. They don't impact your valuation at all. So that is the best part about going after non-dilutive, options. So leverage the grants as much as you can. Uh, Janetta, what advice do you have for applicants who would not have university affiliations? What advantages are there to gaining a university affiliation? And what are the different types of university affiliation entrepreneurs can acquire? I think having a university affiliation is helpful for a couple of reasons. One, you have the resources for having space, for having a bench of other kind of clinicians and other professors to help guide you. You also, when you go on the other side of the table and have the people who are reviewing your application, many times they are university professors or in academia or have been in academia, and they like seeing that. That being said, you don't have to have a university affiliation in order to be awarded. We have only went on SBIRs ourselves, even though my co-founder had worked at the universities, for most of his professional career. We have been able to recruit clinical trials without any university involvement for some of them. For some of them, we did anchor with a university. So it can be advantageous, but you can also pull it off on your own. The IRB as well, that's linked to a university, especially early on, can be helpful because a lot of the times they already have a process in place and you've got your protocol and informed consent templates that you can leverage. Whereas if you use a third party, IRB like Advera, who we use, but Western and some of the other ones are very good as well. You do have to do a lot of that yourself. So university can be helpful in a lot of ways, but not required. All right, Jai. Certain funding programs are for university teams that haven't formed companies or licensed the company yet. How do you determine the best time to take these steps? So for for the SBIR program and the STTR program, I'm fairly certain that you need to have a formed company. That may or may not be the case for NSF, but I'm pretty sure when you think about SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research, you need to have a legal entity that you can, basically take these funds and pay taxes on. So I would highly recommend in the vast majority of the cases that you have an entity beforehand. In fact, I don't think you can apply through sam.gov unless that's in place. So I think it's pretty close to 100% that you would need that. And then, in order to kind of determine how to license and kind of go about that process while into a university, I'm not as familiar with that, but I would definitely, if you're there, talk to an advisor, a professor who has already been funded, for example, or even your Office of Technology Transfer. They can be very useful as well. Another question is, are there specific people and roles within the organizations like the AARP that are decision makers with grant funding? Are they different for different states? And is a department that's in charge of this type of funding? So there are a lot of options for funding out there that are outside of the SBIR program. You've got the Gates Foundation that does awards. There are several other, both domestic and international bodies that fund dementia research, which is what I'm the most familiar with. So, and the AARP, they may also have some grants available, although it's not as common. I would say I would just, use chat, Gemini, Claude to find out what's available and kind of throw your idea in there and see what they come back with. That might be a good way to kind of get more information. Uh, the next question is around the SAFE. So the SAFE does stand for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. It is a version of a convertible note that typically does not have any interest associated with it, but is something that would kind of scale up as you raise more money. A lot of the times you'll start with a SAFE with, let's call it, $1 million valuation cap, and as you have more progress, you can raise at a higher valuation cap because you've been de-risked. But SAFE is a very popular external investment vehicle. All right, Chris. What price to sales multipliers are dilutive investors using for valuations in your experience? Or is this more based on growth? So that's very different industry by industry. I would say there is a lot of great resources out there. The top one I'd suggest is check out Carta. There's a guy, Carta is a cap table management company, and there's a guy, Peter Walker, that has great insights for Carta and really what are common multiples by industry in those pre-seed, seed, Series A, and then B onwards. I don't want to kind of quote them off the cuff. I think they're pretty easy to find, that you can look them up. How do you find investors? You start with people that believe in you. Uh, they're ultimately in these early stages betting on you as a founder. Yeah, there could be a lot of great visuals that you show and traction, early testimonials, but are you all in on doing this? Are you willing to sacrifice a lot of your personal you make a lot of sacrifices as a founder, and can you kind of have that passion and can you show everyone that you are all in and you know the size of the market and you are going to pivot and make it happen. So start with friends and family, go to different angel groups that are either regional to where you live or industry focused that are national. And those are great ways to find some of your investors. Robert, any advice when seeking a merger or an acquisition? Um, I am not as familiar and experienced on that side of the house, so I really don't have any great advice for today. Adam, any indication that politics is playing a role in the SBIR process? Uh, yes, it is playing a role in the process. You can see that by the reauthorization that took 9 months to complete, or maybe it was around 7 months. It was really from September all the way through April. And you have the small business committees on both sides that are really determining what should go into this new version of the SBIR reauthorization. It created havoc for investigators like myself. And unfortunately, there were politics that were involved. I'm not really going to get into the specifics to that. I think there's a lot of publicly available information that talks to that. But I would say now that it has been reauthorized, in terms of making funding decisions and how you position your SBIR application. Look at the agency that you're applying to, the division of the National Institutes of Health, or really what are the funding that has went into that SBIR program. All that's public record. They have to submit that to Congress. You can see a multi-year strategic plan. So if you develop your application based on what those focus areas are, then it becomes a lot more impartial, that you can get funded based on these unmet needs that are publicly, listed, and you'll have a much higher success rate. Fedora, how do they want to see PIs with an extensive publication history for the applicant, or is it okay if another member on your team has that? I would say it's okay to have another member of your team with those peer-reviewed manuscripts, as long as you have at least one person, especially on the on your phase one, who has that prior research experience. That's going to put you in a good spot. As a scientific reviewer myself, if I see no one on the with a bio sketch who has research experience, and it's really just someone who's kind of coming up with a an innovation on their own, you tend to be maybe a little more critical and unforgiving in some of the areas that aren't really crisp, that align to the scientific rigor. So it doesn't have to be the PI, although that's preferred to have that background. But I would have at least one. And certainly as you get into the randomized control trial, you definitely need to have that as well. Um, when you apply for SBIR, what technology readiness level of your product? You mentioned about collecting numbers for the application, but what numbers do you mean? A good question. So, a lot of the initial feasibility can be surveys that you do. You can do it kind of in a public setting and do like a Survey Monkey survey, asking about an unmet need that's out there and what people think about that. You can have really pretty basic types of data collection when you do presentations. Probably has to be more than a show of hands. You have to have actual Likert type surveys with some of that data. But you don't need a lot, and you don't have to actually submit those results when you apply for a phase one. So you just need to be able to talk to it, and that you can demonstrate that you've kind of went through that early rigor in kind of thinking through a methodical approach. Jai, this is for programs such as TEDCO, MII, NSF, I-Corps. Okay, that might be a response to another question. Howard, I may have missed it, but what is the best way to find a qualified grant writer? How do you qualify a prospect? So I would talk to someone who is already an awardee. You can go to NIH Reporter and basically look at all of the awards within the specific area, and people's emails and phone numbers are there. It's public record if you want to get bold and cold outreach people. But oftentimes to get a higher success rate is, talk to someone that you know that has been utilize different kinds of grant writers in their successful applications. I'm happy if anyone emails me to share some resources. There are a couple of firms and individual, grant writers and administrators that have been successful kind of on the NIH and NIA side of the house. So I'm happy to share some ideas, but there's a lot of firms out there that you can query. All right. Well, that is the end of the formal questions. We have technically 4 more minutes. If someone wants to send one more question through the chat, we'll maybe give it a minute, and then if there's nothing else, we will wrap it up. I am really honored to be able to share my experiences with you all. Again, I'm a N of one, as they say in research, where what my experiences are is what my experiences are, and it might be very different from someone else. But have been able to repeat this over multiple applications and had success using some of these techniques. So I definitely think that what you hear and learn today can be pretty applicable for the broader non-dilutive funding strategy, but then incorporating some of the tools that I had mentioned, for the external funding as well. All right, Victoria, you got the last one. What is your Map Habit plan for the next 5 years? So I am looking to kind of expand to rural health programs. There are 5 years of $50 billion of investment for innovative consumer-facing AI-powered technologies that help individuals who are in vast geographic spaces with lack of in-person support and specialists with overstretched emergency rooms and different kinds of clinics that are woefully underfunded. So rural health is one area. Working with different kinds of advocacy groups and also doing kind of thought leadership exercises like this is a plan of mine to kind of get the word out. Also, we are part of associations. One of them happens to be the Managed Long-Term Services and Supports Association that focuses on health insurance companies and managed care organizations that support Medicaid individuals. So as I mentioned, Map Habit is very applicable for both the aging and caregiving space, but then also those with disabilities. And the MLTSS Association is a great one, and the health plans that are associated with that are looking for enabling technologies. They're looking for people to self-direct, and that's really what we made Map Habit for. So a combination of looking at the reimbursement landscape, seeing where federal funding is for grants, but then also parlaying that into solutions to kind of bend the cost curve for payers and health insurance companies, but ultimately at the same time and always keeping the member first is really how to at least for us to focus on commercialization, and that's our plan for the next 5 years. All right. Uh, Nothing further else. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I can just tell by the questions that this was very informative to a lot of people who are probably in the beginning stages like you were years ago. So thank you so much. And this will be posted on the JHAITC website. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.